Hey there, everybody. Welcome back with the Purplatypus is the name. Welcome back to Vampire Survivors for the first time. Welcome back for the very first time. We are doing a weapons tier list today. And now, as with all tier lists that I make, these are 100% factual. And if you have any disagreements, you can just leave it in the comments down below, and I will explain to you why you are wrong and why I am right. Anyway, we're going to jump into it. We just have some, I want to give a shout out to the music we're going to be listening to. Indie Falco, just looking up some 8-bit stuff. The game doesn't have much of a soundtrack that I could just easily play. When you go into a level, it just kind of stops after a few minutes. And I couldn't find it on YouTube. So we're just listening to some pleasant background sound. So let us jump into it. We are going to be doing just weapons today. We'll do passives like in another video or something. Or I just don't think I don't think they kind of fit in the same video very well. But I will be doing both the normal forms and the evolved forms, and we'll just see. We'll see as we go exactly how it's going to happen. Things are likely to move around, by the way. But let's just jump. Right now, Axe. I think Axe is good, but I don't think it's like great. It's I mostly think Axe, you know what? We're just going to put it right here. We're going to put it in C tier. I don't think it's quite average. I think it's a little bit worse than average, maybe. It's really good if you get it super early and use it to kill like big bosses that are like above you, right? Because you throw the axes, you do pretty good damage. But I don't think it's like early, you don't really need it. And late in the game, I just don't think it's super good. However, I do think, and again, I'm judging these separately. Axe, I think, is not amazing, but I do think the evolved axe is actually pretty good. I think I usually fit this into almost all of my builds because you need the chandelier, which is one of my favorite passives. And so I rate that pretty highly. So I also, evolved weapons, in my opinion, are going to be judged not just on their effect, but on their passive that they need to take as well. So maybe there's a little bit of a guide here for this as well, or a little bit of a tier list, but we're not going to rank them. Yeah, I think that's good. As for Fire Wand, I personally really like Fire Wand. I think it's kind of just a better version of Axe. It's just a high damage thing. It doesn't really pierce. It's not much for AoE, but for AoE, you've got better things than Axe. And for single target damage, you've got better things. Axe feels like kind of a hybrid between high damage and high AoE, but it doesn't really excel in either of those. I am going to put the Fire Wand at B rank. I think the Fire Wand is great. I love starting with it. It's kind of always feels good to have it. It's kind of hard to notice how much work it's doing, and because it does, when enemies really start to clog later, it does kind of start to suck. But at that point, you also get the evolved Fire Wand, which it fires things in all directions, not like the axe where it like pulses out, but it just shoots shit like all over the place and it pierces enemies. This thing fucks, man. This thing is so good. I really, really, really like it. It's not quite S tier good, I don't think. I'm trying to look and see what else I would consider S tier. I don't think it's quite S tier. Well, again, it might move around. We'll take a peek here. So Garlic. I'm gonna make some enemies here. I think Garlic kind of sucks. I don't think it's like super bad. I think it's synergistic with like Book, right? And I mean, spoiler alert, but I'm gonna like Book. But the fact that, so there is an evolved Garlic, which isn't on here, by the way. I personally didn't feel the evolved Garlic was that strong. Now, that's not saying it isn't strong. My friend says that he has the strongest run he's ever had with evolved Garlic. I personally didn't find it that powerful. But Garlic itself, it's so fun, like when you start early in a run and you're just dashing to enemies as fast as you can and ripping them up, and leveling up really fast. That's pretty cool, but it falls off pretty fast and pretty brutally. Now, it does synergize with weapon cooldown, which means you can get extra hits faster, which I think is important. But I still think it's just like, I think its best trait is that it weakens enemies' resistances to knockback, and it makes Book better because it knocks them back further. So that's mostly where I think Garlic stands. I'm going to put it below Axe. I actually just don't think it's very good. But I know it's a fan favorite. So if you think I'm high, please let me know in the comments down below. As far as evolved, I would put maybe in B rank. Maybe it's insane, but you have to take this heart in order to get it. And I think the heart kind of is maybe straight up the worst passive item besides maybe the mask, which is only for meta progression, basically. So I don't rate that very highly because it's taken up, like, yeah, it's a good weapon, and nothing in this game is bad, I should say. Nothing is like straight trash, I don't think. But like this is a I think this is like as close as you get to being bad. And so, and I don't want to take up one of my passive slots. And so needing to take this to get the garlic, I don't personally like. Bone, you know, I'm a little crazy. I think bone is like pretty fantastic. I don't think a lot of people like it, but I won't lie, it is kind of bad for like the first 4 or 5 levels. But once you get high enough, I think bone is kind of crazy. It's kind of a lot like Rune Tracer in a lot of ways. But man, those bones get big. And obviously the more enemies there are, the better it is, because it has a big hitbox and it bounces around and hits more things. So early on, it does feel kind of like it's not doing much, but as more and more enemies spawn, I think it gets better. Now, the Chrono Scepter, I don't remember exactly what it's called. Previously I was rating this as a D myself. I think it's getting upgraded to being a C. And that's mostly because in like a really, really late game scenario, like if you have 5 weapons that you have maxed out and this is like your 6th, if you kind of are in the last few minutes of the game, like 5 minutes, and enemies are just everywhere, you can kind of follow where this is freezing enemies, and you could run into those enemies safely because enemies that are frozen don't deal you damage. It's still a little risky to do that, but I do think that this could be a potential run winner in some really, really specific late game scenarios where your build is already intact, and it could help you just kind of escape. But if you're in that situation, you might already be kind of a little bit weaker than you should be at that point. Cross, you know what? What do I feel about Cross? This is a tough one for me. I don't think I like Cross as much as I like Axe. I don't think I like Cross as much as I like Axe, but it's not bad. It's like pretty good, right? It's got great piercing, but it's kind of hard to aim in a way that you want. It's kind of doing its own thing. But you know, you throw it and it goes to the closest enemy in front of you, but then it goes back all the way off screen and pierces everything there. Its damage is pretty decent. I'm not in love with it. However, the sword, I think the sword is easy A tier. I don't know if it's better or worse than sickle. I think it might be better than the sickle. It just has such a huge hitbox, and it fires very fast, very frequently. It kind of goes out as like a sword, and then it like turns to the side and spins out. Kind of, it hits a lot of things. I actually think it might just be better than sickle here. So maybe it's like I don't know if I consider it the same as Axe. I think they're kind of different weapons, but as far as where I rank them, I actually kind of like Cross a little bit worse than Axe, but I like the upgraded Cross a bit more than I like sickle. However, in order to get upgraded Cross, we're gonna actually switch this. Even though I like this more than sickle, I have to keep in mind that you need to get the luck upgrade, which is like kind of situational. It's not bad, but it's fine. But in order to get the this right, in order to get the Axe, you need to get the Chandelier, which I take basically every run anyway because it's one of my favorite items. And so I'm already gonna get that. This you kind of have to make a sacrifice potentially, which I'm not a huge fan of. All right, so this is going to be an interesting one. There's actually a missing item here, because it's a recent patch. But Ebony Wing and Bird, these are D tier. I think these are totally shit, garbage things. Now, if you get them both and you get them both to rank 8, they have a evolved form, which I think I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use Antonio, I guess, to symbolize this. Antonio is going to be the new combined. Actually, we can just pull it up right here. Vampire Survivors collection right here. It's this. It's going to be the Vandalier. So this basically what this does, I think this is S tier, by the way. I think this is potential to be the best item in the game. Maybe not. I think there's another item that's also S tier. But I think that so not only is it really good because it's, so you get 2 items. Once they're both level 8, they're actually decent, right? Once they're both level 8, they might even be as high as C, I guess. But what's really good about this item is it takes both of them and combines them into one item. Now, when these 2 items become one item, you then get a free item slot back. So now you get an extra weapon that you wouldn't have gotten if you didn't take this combo, because you essentially have 2 weapons become 1 weapon. And so you actually are getting like 1.5 times bonus weapons, because these also, once this is synergized, this thing can level up again and get even stronger than the combined form. So it's very, very, very good. And once it's fully leveled up, this thing is kind of, it's already insane, but it's also insane. And you, by taking it, you kind of also get another weapon slot back. Now you do have to take 2 dumpy things, But the payoff I think is really, really high. I really, really like this. I think it's definitely S tier. It does this insane work. Dagger, knife. I'm gonna put this as the worst weapon in the game. I think this is a little controversial. Maybe not the worst weapon in the game. Maybe though. I really, really think it just sucks. There's not much more to it. I just don't like it very much. I think it's probably the worst item. I know some people definitely have love for it. I don't think it's greatly loved though, for the most part. It does have an evolved form here. I'm gonna put the evolved form below garlic. It's no doubt that it's more powerful than garlic, but I feel like for an evolved weapon, it's so lackluster. It doesn't stop firing, but you still, like, most of the time, once you get in the early game, you are chasing things down, right? You're trying to get as much EXP as possible, but there kind of comes a shift where you're just trying to survive, or you're just trying to, get to a point where you're so powerful where you can AFK, kind of thing. And I don't think this helps with that at all. This helps you, like, clear a path, I suppose, when you're running, but I don't know. I've always felt this is super lackluster. It doesn't quite have the, I think if it went like a little bit higher, a little bit lower, and it didn't, like, because things kind of come in at an angle a little bit, and this can miss it, and they can still hit you up top. I'm just not a fan of it. Laurel. So I usually take this. I honestly think it might be like down here. Now, I think this is an item that is an S tier when you're brand new to the game. And it slowly ticks down further, because this is not a passive, like it kind of thinks, because it doesn't actually attack, but this takes up a weapon slot. Typically, I think it's better just to have another weapon. Now, there are times, especially, and maybe in different levels, right? Different levels, this might change. Level 2, for example, I think Laurel's a little bit better than in level 1, because there's the exploding ghost that might be able to get past you and explode. But it's like this is kind of like helps erase mistakes, right? If something like you don't see get past your defenses, or you don't quite see it, like you'll just take a 0 damage hit instead. You'll be like, oh, oops, and you can correct it. So this thing can stop like a run from instantly being ended, but ideally you want to get to the point where you're kind of focused enough on the screen where you don't really need it. And this doesn't help you win the run as much as it helps you survive longer in a run by surviving mistakes, in my opinion. So I don't love it, but I usually end up taking because I'm still not that good, but I don't think it needs to fit in there. Magic Wand. I think Magic Wand is a B. I think this is good, as this is one of the only attacks that you have super direct control. I mean, there's a few, right? There's like Knife, which I think is bad because it attacks a specific direction that you're moving, or that you last moved. This kind of just hits whatever's closest to you. So this is kind of pretty awesome, because it knows what's closest to you, so it'll always be trying to kill the things that are closest to hitting you, which I think just handles itself pretty well. I really, really like this item. Its evolved form here is not honestly that much better. I'm gonna put it high B, maybe low A. Like, I like it. I do think it's good, but it's not like that much better. This thing's already kind of going all the time, but it is definitely an improvement. It's kind of like a last line of defense thing. You're not relying on this for all your damage. This is kind of just helping you survive. Pentagram. I think Pentagram is might be tied with Knife as some of the worst items in the game. That being said, there's a chance that it's good at level 8 if you have max cooldown. Maybe if you can get this going like every 15 seconds, every 20 seconds, maybe that's pretty good. But even then, like, it destroys items so much of the time. It kind of prevents you from leveling up. It deletes chests, like, it's just pretty bad. And if it's like you just have it as a weapon, yeah, every 60 seconds it wipes the screen, but enemies are on you like that, man. Can you hear that snap? They're like that. They are just back on you. I think this is probably one of those things that will need either it'll need something, like it needs an evolved form, or it's just there as like a fun, cool item. It's visually very impressive. I like it. But I don't think it's worth taking almost ever, other than for the fact that it's fun. Back to garlic. One thing again I wanted to say about it: garlic doesn't synergize with duplicator, which is kind of sad for me. I take duplicator on almost every run because it's like so good, right? And so that's kind of lame. It's one of the few items that actually doesn't synergize with extra projectiles. Like Laurel doesn't. I'm trying to think, is literally anything else not synergized? Like, I don't even know if anything else doesn't. The clock thing probably doesn't, but I already don't really take that. But yeah, that might be basically it. Aura, no, Rune Tracer. You know, Rune Tracer, I think it's kind of hard to tell what it's doing when it's doing its thing. I think it's pretty good. I think it's, yeah, I'm just going to put it probably right below the Fire Staff. I think this is pretty good. It's definitely not like an A tier. It's not on the level of these awesome weapons. But I think it's something that you're good to have. I think this bone is too high. I think it might be more like this. I do like the bone, but yeah, I think we'll go with that. Rune Tracer, not much to say about it. As it gets going, it gets pretty good. The issue with it is that you kind of want, no, I guess it's not really an issue. You want Bracer, right? You want the speed, which is pretty good with it. Duplicator's pretty good with it. The cooldowns, like, it synergizes with pretty much everything. The only thing it doesn't synergize with is, no, I mean, yeah, I think it pretty much synergizes with everything, actually. I'm trying to think. It doesn't synergize with the Chandelier, which I actually really like. That's not what this is called, but that's what it looks like in my head, so that's what I call it. It doesn't get bigger, I don't think. It doesn't feel like it does anyway. I think it specifically says that it doesn't, so that's kind of a bummer. But everything else, like, it's just a pretty solid weapon. I usually don't first pick it or like second pick it, but if I'm like halfway through and I don't see anything else good, like, I have no problem taking it. Whip, I think Whip starts as an A tier at minute 0 of the game, and then by the late game, I think it ticks down to like a C tier. And then we're talking about Whip here. We're not even talking about the upgraded thing. I think I honestly still like it more than the daggers, because at least it hits like directions. And so the Whip, as it gets projectiles, they each go slightly higher up. So if you get like 5 projectiles on this thing, I think you get 2 base, and then you can get 2 from the duplicator, and then you can get another 1 from the thing. So I think you can get up to 5, and you can even get up to 6, 7, 8 if you're playing skeleton, right? And so they keep going higher and higher up. So I think it's like pretty good. I think it kind of ticks down over the course of a game. It is very good early for targeted damage that you get to destroy. It's actually better than Magic Wand a lot of times. I just think Magic Wand scales a bit better into the game. As for the Bloody Whip, I think the Bloody Whip is kind of like high C tier. You know, to say it's worse than Rune Tracer is probably a bit disingenuous, though. Like, it's probably better than all these, but like, so there's it's kind of like in Magic the Gathering, you know, there could be a card at 7 mana that's a, you know, 7 mana 6/6, but there's a there could be a 2 mana, you know, 5/5. The 2 mana 5/5 is better than the 7 mana 6/6, even though the stats are better on one because the cost of getting it, right? And so the cost of getting this is so much higher than getting these. Is basically what I'm trying to say, is that, like, I don't think that, even though this is objectively better, I think, than Rune Tracer, like this is, you want this over Rune Tracer, but in order to get this, you have to get Hollowed Heart, which you don't really want that much, and then you have to get Whip, which you don't really want that much, and you have to get Whip to level 8 instead of other things, and then your payoff is like good, but overall I don't think it's that amazing. Now this is where we're going to get into the biases here. Strong biases. Lightning Ring is one of my favorite items, but I just like here. So Lightning Ring always feels like it's doing insane work for me, but at the end game stats, or it's like, here's your run, here's how much damage you did, it's always like in last place, man. Like, I'm gonna put it here. I like it, but I think it might be like low C tier. Honestly, I think it might be like low C tier. It's kind of hard for me to say, but I really, really like this item. So I'm gonna put it in the low B tier. I feel like it does a good job, but it doesn't ever visually appear like it's actually doing that much in the numerical stats. Book, I think Book is high A tier. I think Book by itself is better than all of these evolved items. The Book is better than most of the evolved items in the game. It just, once you get it leveled up, it synergizes with basically everything, right? It synergizes with Duplicator, synergizes with cooldown, synergizes with duration, synergizes with spinach, synergizes with whatever, you know, the area effect. The speed is super good on it, all right? This is actually a huge extra damage increase on the Book, but it's just so powerful. It feels broken, kind of how powerful it is. And believe it or not, there's an evolved version of the Book, which I think is even stronger than the book. What? I think this is the strongest item in the game, even stronger than the new birds. This thing, now it doesn't synergize with this whatever anymore, but you don't care. It doesn't synergize with the weapon cooldown anymore, but you don't care because it never stops. It's just a book that never stops going. This thing is just like absolutely insane. I think it's like the cornerstone of like what would be considered a meta or an overpowered thing. I love the book. The book is like, if I want to make it to the late game and do well, no matter what I'm trying to do, I usually just try to put in a book in there. Now you do have to take the spellbinder thing, which I think is probably the worst part about it. It is the duration increase, but there are things that are pretty good with the duration increase. Not that many though, to be honest. Like, it doesn't synergize with the fire staff, right? That's immune to duration. The garlic, this like almost none of the stuff. I think the rune tracer and the bone both synergize with it, which is pretty good, but most of the things don't. I actually think the bird does though. The other S tier item I do think synergizes with that, so that is pretty good as well. Now we're down to what a lot of people consider the worst item in the game, Santa water. Now personally, which this is a personal list for me personally, I'm going to put Santa water high B tier. Is this crazy? Maybe. It might be. So I think Santa water easily starts as the worst item in the game. I think it is the worst item in the game, but as you get levels on it, this thing scales pretty out of control. But I think the issue is a lot of people don't bother to level it because it's so bad early. I think once you get it high enough, like I've had runs where, so it looks like it's kind of dropping randomly, right? Just everywhere. But as you get it higher leveled up and you get more duration, you get more, duplicator projectiles, things like that, lower weapon cooldown, you'll see that it's actually just going in a circle around you clockwise, right? It's just like dropping it in a circle all the way around you. And as this gets really high leveled, you can actually get to the point where you have a 100% ring of fire around you at all times. If you're standing still, not running around everywhere, because it will do crazy stuff if you're running around. But I have had a run where I just had a ring of fire around me at all times. So it was kind of like having a second book that does potentially more damage. It does very, very good damage, because I think it's like the idea of it is that you have to lure enemies into it most of the time. But when you have a full ring of fire, obviously it's hitting enemies at all times. And obviously even before the full ring of fire, it's still pretty good. If you have a half ring of fire, right? Like it's still killing half of the wave on one side of the screen. So very, very good item. I think it starts down here, and then as you level it up, I think it gets up. And I think at the max level, when you have all the items, I think it's better than Magic Wand upgraded. I think it might actually be up here. Now this seems absurdly high. Now this is only because I think this synergizes with basically the things that I care about, right? The AoE, I don't think it's the most important, but it synergizes with the AoE. It synergizes with the weapon cooldown. It synergizes with duplicator. It synergizes with duration, and it doesn't just synergize, like it's quite a bit better with all these things. AoE is very big. It makes the circles bigger, being able to fire more. So this, and this all help you get closer to having a full ring of fire. And then obviously everything synergizes with spinach because it's just damage increase. But so I think it's an item that is base pretty bad, levels up very fast to be good, and then it synergizes with everything you're going to be taking anyway, because it just, and it synergizes very well. So I actually am going to put it up there. I think that looks absurd, but that's just where I feel in my heart right now. Now that is all of the weapons currently in the game, guys. We'll do a character tier list next, or we'll do a passive one yet. I'm not exactly sure, but we'll figure it out. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. I just wanted to have fun. Am I crazy? Probably, but you know what? I had a good time. Also, just for the sake of it, Porta, she's going to be the evolved garlic. We're going to put evolved garlic. It's definitely better than lightning ring, but you do have to take this thing. So we're going to put it like right here. Well, let's not use her because she's lightning ring. We'll use something that's not up there. We'll put this guy up here, I guess. Again, this is just a placeholder for the garlic upgraded evolved form. That's where I'll put that. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Purplatypus is Purplatypus. Let me know what you think. And if you want me to start posting some runs on the channel, I can do that as well. I haven't really been doing that, but I've been playing the game. Much love. Purplatypus is Purplatypus. I will see you next time.